Dakota Johnson shares, Jamie Dornan was there for her during her hardest and saddest times. The past few months have never been easy for Dakota. The demanding filming schedule, the tight shooting schedule, the pressure from the media, the baseless gossip, all of it like a dark cloud always looming over her head. Every morning when she wakes up, she has to tell herself, I'll try harder today, and then she's caught up in her own spiral: worry, fear, loneliness. One cold winter evening, after a shoot that lasted more than 16 hours, Dakota returned to her rented apartment. She didn't have enough strength to take off her thick makeup, didn't have enough energy to prepare dinner. She just wanted to lie there, in the dark, letting the clock tick-tack-tack, reminding her of the passing of time but leaving nothing but exhaustion. In that moment of weakness, her phone vibrated. On the screen was the name, Jamie Dornan. Dakota's heart ached. She knew Jamie didn't pick up right away, usually just texting. But this time, she heard his voice on the other end. Dakota. Are you okay? His voice was soft, a little hoarse from the late hour. Dakota couldn't say anything, just heard her heart pounding. Finally, she stammered, I don't know. Her voice was trembling. Jamie asked if she was home. When she said yes, he said he would come, if she wanted. Jamie came to her. About 30 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Dakota pulled back the covers and went to open it. Behind the door was Jamie, wearing a simple jacket, his hair a little messy. In his hands was a small bag of snacks and a hot water bottle. He walked in, no reproach, no question demanding a reason. Just a quiet presence, like a friend who knew she was lost in the dark night. Jamie helped her change into comfortable clothes, turned off all the lights, leaving only the dim light from the table lamp. He sat beside her, held her shoulder, told her to cry if she wanted to. And she cried, long, as if the sadness of the past week, the months, had been pent up, and now had a place to pour out. He didn't say much, just whispered gentle words. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to fight alone. Whenever you fall, I'll be there for you, to pick you up. Dakota leaned against Jamie's shoulder, smelling his warm scent, a light, clean scent, like the first safe space in days of being lost. Her cheeks were wet, her whole face was covered with tears, but she felt lighter. As if something inside her was exposed, seen, protected. Hours passed. She talked about her fears, fear of not doing well, fear of being criticized, fear of being forgotten. Jamie was silent. Sometimes, you did well. I believe in you. She didn't know if those words were big or not, but to her, they meant the world. The words she shared. A few days later, when she had regained some composure, Dakota sat in her living room, facing a small camera to live stream with her fans. She knew they were waiting, asking about behind-the-scenes stories, about her new project, about her feelings. But Dakota decided this time would be different. She took a sip of hot tea, looked deeply into the camera. Guys, she began, her voice a little off, I want to share something personal. Probably no one in the world but that person knows all the days I've felt at my weakest. She paused, her eyes falling to her palms. Jamie Dornan has been there for me when I felt like I couldn't go on. He listened when I wanted to be quiet, held me when I was shaking, told me I wasn't alone. The people watching the live stream were quiet. They left messages full of thanks, words of encouragement, but Dakota didn't look at the chat. She just stared straight at the screen as if looking into everyone's eyes, as if wanting to convey to each of them the truth she had just revealed. Her weakness, her need to be loved, her gratitude. And, she added, her heart beating fast, in those dark moments, I realized something clearly. My heart, it belonged to Jamie Dornan. She looked deep, her eyes sad but also determined. Not because you came out as a hero, but because you chose to stay, even though I was imperfect. Because you understood when I could only cry rather than talk. Because you believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Challenges and decisions. After that sharing, things didn't go smoothly right away. There were supportive comments, suggestions, and even baseless rumors. Some people said she might be using this to get attention. Others speculated that Jamie had feelings for something more than just friends. Dakota had to face the scrutiny of the press, had to explain many times in interviews that her feelings weren't for PR, that belonging didn't mean it was already determined or waiting to be made public. But it was in those challenges that she realized what she wanted was for herself, and Jamie, to know that she wasn't afraid to admit her feelings. That she valued Jamie not just as a friend, but as someone she could trust. Someone she could share her fears, her laughter, and her quiet moments with. Jamie, after listening to her live stream, called. He said he felt those words came from her heart. That there were times when he wanted to leave because he was afraid he wasn't good enough, afraid he would hurt her, afraid that others would misunderstand. But he said he chose to stay, not because of the pressure of responsibility, but because he believed in her, because she believed in him, and because he didn't want to continue living in a pretense. He wanted her to know that, if she needed him, he would still be the one she could rely on. Light at the end of the tunnel. One spring morning, when the cherry blossoms began to bloom outside the apartment window, the light gently filtered through the curtains. Dakota opened her eyes, feeling something warm spread in her chest. She looked out the window, at the small yard with young trees, birds singing. She felt peaceful, a peace that had not been there for a long time. Jamie was waiting for her at the dining table, having prepared a simple breakfast, toast, fruit, eggs. At least her favorite foods, when she was in the mood to eat. He looked at her, a gentle smile. "Morning," he said, his voice soft. "Shall we have breakfast together?" Dakota returned a small smile, placing her hand on his. She didn't say, "Thank you," because it was something like this that didn't need words, the presence, the gentleness, the daily care, all enough to make her feel less alone. After a moment of silence, she said, "Jamie, I thought a lot about everything yesterday. About the times I cried and was scared, about the times I wanted to give up." She looked into his eyes, where she saw not just concern, but affection waiting to be acknowledged. "And I realized," she continued, "my heart, it really belonged to you. Not just in my times of need, but in the simplest moments, when I laughed, when I was quiet, when I felt myself." Jamie smiled, bowing his head slightly. He took her hand. "I've known for a long time," he said, "but I wanted to wait until you were ready to say it, so people wouldn't say it was just loneliness or weakness." He raised his head to look at Dakota, his eyes sincere. "I want to be worthy of your heart." Dakota felt her eyes moisten, but this time it was from happiness, from the feeling of being understood, from the feeling of being chosen. She squeezed Jamie's hand, her heart almost soaring, together from the little things. From then on, they began to build a connection that was quiet, without the need for fanfare. Jamie still had a busy schedule, Dakota still had to film, meet fans, attend events. But there were evenings where they did nothing, just sat on the sofa, watched a movie, shared a piece of cake, talked about small dreams, talked about future children, talked about rainy days with nothing to do. Dakota once found herself missing the smell of rain when Jamie walked into the house. He had just finished work, his jacket slightly wet, his hair a little messy. She smiled, pulled his jacket into the bathroom, and used a warm towel to dry his hair. Jamie looked at her and said, "Thank you for still seeing me in my imperfect moments." As for Dakota, she said to herself, I love Jamie not just because he is strong, but because he is soft, because he is just himself. Love him with every bit, every breath. Her heart chose him, not because he is perfect, but because he is real.